moment in the conference where we tell our story, because we feel that our visibility saves lives and that we must be out there, we must be on the forefront in order for us to get justice, equity, and equality, and the basic needs that we need for everyday um, uh, survival. And we invited some distinguished people from our community, trailblazers, stakeholders, to share their stories. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to see some video recordings, and then we're going to have a live presentation. So without further ado, I think we're ready to introduce our first presentation, which is Ms. Major. Ms. Major Griffin Gracie, often referred to as Ms. Major, is a trans woman activist and community leader for transgender rights, with particular focus on women of color. She served as the original executive director for the Transgender Variant Intersex Justice Project, which aims to assist transgender persons who are disproportionately incarcerated in the prison industrial complex. Ms. Major has participated in activism for a wide range of causes throughout her lifetime, including the 1969 Stonewall riots in New York City. Ms. Major has 4 sons in her life and worked as an activist in the 1960s has been depicted through the feature documentary titled Major Honey, which was released in 2015. So let's give a great round of applause and welcome to Ms. Major in her presentation.
Well, let me see. With this pandemic that we have going on, and what got me here to this point is for a better life, a better world, I don't believe that in the years that has happened, that it was the right time, that people didn't pull together then like they're doing now. And so now I have believed that it will succeed, that the number of Caucasian people have joined the forces, and so through that, hopefully it's enough change to move it forward. But what I would like for the young people to believe in and trust, and that is in themselves. They've got to believe in themselves and think that they can achieve the things we didn't achieve. This rush to judgment now is late coming, but it can succeed. And this time, cross your fingers, this time it can work, So I hope. Yeah. That's hard because, I didn't think I would get this old. I'm 75 now, so it's like, oh wow, I've actually gotten to 70. So I never thought that I would make it now, and I didn't think I would be here to see all the wondrous things that have happened, and so it's amazing that I'm this old, and there are still people that believe in me, that want me to succeed and stuff. So that's a shocker to me. When I was younger and doing shows and running around, I was, going to party and carry on and then end it, But it continues on. So as for me, I'm just shocked that I'm this old, and I hope to get older. I want to live to be 100. Then I go. God, what is faith to me? Faith is a number of things. It is your faith in the people around you, how you build your life. Faith is a number of the way you do things. And I don't believe so much in faith of stuff as I believe in spirituality. And that is more to me than what faith is. You know what I mean? Faith is a belief in something, and I do have a belief in it, but I believe in spirituality. I believe the soul goes on, you know, my soul, her soul, you know, everyone's soul continues on. And in that realm, then I believe in faith, you know. So I hope that answers that question, you know, what it is, okay?
Yes, we've heard from the trailblazer, Ms. Major, and I want to say thank you, Ms. Major, for smoothing out the pathway, for making the pathway smoother for the next generation, and for paving out the pathway for the generation to come. We're happy that you're here. We're happy that you're getting older. You're beautiful, aging gracefully. So we want to see our sheroes still here so we can honor them and we can give them their roses while they're here. So we honor you, Ms. Major, for the work that you've done to advance our community. So now we move forward to hear from our next presenter, which is Ms. Tori Cooper. Now, Tori Cooper is a health and equity advocate, community organizer, educator, published author, and leader in the trans and HIV communities. She leads with more than 30 years of experience at all levels of HIV service, from volunteer roles to her service as executive director and founder of Advocates for Better Care, Atlanta LLC. She now serves as the Human Rights Campaign's Director of Community Engagement, the Transgender Justice Initiative. In this role, her focus includes economic empowerment, capacity building programs, public safety, and expanded public education campaigns. Tori's work is featured in a new documentary titled Silent Epidemic, where she talks about the trans community and HIV in the South. She is currently matriculating towards her Master of Arts degree in public health. Tori believes that empowerment, education, and opportunity are three important factors in success for trans and gender non-conforming people. Let's hear the presentation from Tori Cooper.
Hi, my name is Tori Cooper. My pronouns are she, her, and hers, and I am excited to share just a little bit of time today talking about my faith and my transgender identity and how they are so wonderfully intertwined. I am here today because faith is so very, very important to me as a woman, as a Black woman, as a Black transgender woman. My faith has played a part in every single thing that I do. It's played a part in the formation of my gender identity. It plays a part in the way, the image that I choose to portray to people. It plays a part in my interactions with people, both prior to and during every phase of my transition. And I think that without question, my faith is one of the things that has kept me from having to chop people's heads off from time to time. Folks are always nice when folks are not always understanding, and folks are not always nice when they find out about or are are playing a part in your gender identity. And because of that, because these are folks for whom we may have had some type of affection or familiar relationship with, it can be really, really challenging. We want to protect, as human beings and as family, we want to protect those relationships and those relatives. But there are times when we sometimes have to sever relationships or cut them just enough that we can rebuild them from scratch. And faith plays a big part of that. I think of how many folks, I ascribe to Christianity, and I am a Christian, I'm a follower of Christ. And I think of how there's so many people who before their transitions, they had one name and then they transitioned to another. I think about Dorcas, who became Tabitha. And for many trans people, though it may not have been an entirely spiritual journey, our transitions, it is something that required a name change and a change of attitude and a change of relationships, both familial and otherwise. Starting back as young as I can remember, I've always been, I was a kid who loved going to church. I joke with people now, and seriously joking, serious and joking at the same time. Some of my best boyfriends came out of the church. You know, it was one of the few places that when I was old enough to drive and to drive by myself, I could always drive to church. That was an excuse that I could give my parents. And it was a place of safety. It was a place of fun. And it was a place where I could meet a guy who was into the same things that I was, and which was God. Let me say that first. And so that was really, really good. And then later, I realized as I grew and started more of my emotional transition, I realized that my faith and my belief in a higher power and higher systems of power were exactly what I needed to get through. When the world is telling me and people who are like me and people who have similar journeys as I do, telling us that we're wrong and we're doomed to hell, my Bible wasn't telling me that. And the truth is their Bibles weren't telling them that either. They relied on information from somebody else, and my information was coming from my relationship with God. And so whether trans, non-binary, gender non-conforming folks ascribe to a higher power as I do, or if they refer to their higher power as something other than God as I do, I still implore people to rely on the higher power, to make sure that who you are becoming includes a part of who you always were. I think that's really, really important. All right. I can tell the sun is going down, so I'm sitting in direct sunlight. So I'm going to start looking different in a minute. Okay. Okay. Trans in my faith. So my faith as a woman of trans experience is all important to me. And it's all important to me, not because it was taught to me by other people, because my faith and my experience and my relationship with God is my relationship with God. There's a real connection and a true and honest and long-term relationship there. God speaks to me in ways that I understand. And that may not be the same for the next person. You know, as human beings, we're traveling these waters and walking these streets. We don't all speak the same language. So I think for us to think that God, or the higher power whom I call God, talks to us all in the exact same way, I think is a little short-sighted, and it really doesn't encompass who God is. God speaks to us in ways that we get it. In ways that we can hear it and in ways that we can understand it. And I think that's what faith is. I often tell a story. When I was in college, there was a guy, his mother, and it turns out we were related, but his mother is an apostolic pastor. And she went before her congregation and told her that God told her that if she goes to the beach, she can't wear a bathing suit. She wasn't supposed to expose her body. Okay? And so she came back and she apologized to her entire congregation a little later, because she said, God told me I'm not supposed to wear a bathing suit. He didn't tell me what you're not supposed to do. And I've told this story, and it's a true story. I've told that story now for, that was in 1988 or 89 when I was first in undergrad. And I tell that story a lot because I think that's really how God works. The Bible is a book, it refers to itself as a book of parables, or a book of stories. And those stories are supposed to be used as a guideline and a roadmap. But even on a roadmap, it doesn't give you every single detail about your trip. It doesn't. Your roadmap doesn't tell you that there's a pothole here or there's a detour sign there. And the Bible lets you know that there are going to be some detours and some potholes, but it doesn't always tell you. We don't know at 11 what you're going to have to encounter at 22 always. And particularly for those of us who are in some form of physical or gender transition. And so using that roadmap of the Bible, there's a lot of inspiration there. And unfortunately, there's also a lot of subjugation there. And there are folks who, if you don't know for yourself and you don't have a real relationship with God, there are folks who will then allow those same words that are used for your liberation to further keep you in bondage. And so real relationship and real faith is knowing how God is speaking to you, what language and what words he's using specifically for you, and how it applies to your life. The color blue is another thing. I think you could say blue to, if there are 100 million people in the United States and you tell people to describe blue, you might get 100 million different explanations of how they view blue. And I think the same thing can be said about how our faith and our relationship with God is. It's still blue, and it's blue to you. But your vision of blue and your experience of blue may be very, very different than mine. It doesn't make one less important. It doesn't make one less viable. It doesn't make one less healthy, and it certainly doesn't make one less truthful. It just means that it is your blue works for you, and my blue works for me. And I think that's what faith is. I think that's what religion is, and I think that's what real relationship is and what it looks like.
So that was Ms. Tori Cooper. We want to say to Ms. Tori Cooper, thank you so much for the work that you're doing within our community. Thank you so much for paving the pathway and making the pathway smoother for the next generation. Thank you so much for being you and being the woman that you are. Now, before we move on to our next presentation, first, let me take my cough drop out. I'm sorry, y'all. Okay, I'd like to say a quote really quickly and about visibility and why it's so important. And that visibility which makes us most vulnerable is that which also is the source of our greatest strength. And that's Miss Audre Lorde. This is why we're doing this segment of Our Visibility Saves Lives. It's important for everyone to see us, and our stories will also help someone else during their periods in their life, their transitions, evolutions in their lives. So this is why it's so important for us to tell our stories in our own words. Now, moving on to the next presenter, Mr. Yeshua A. Holiday is the founder of the Joshua Transgeneration. They are also an ordained elder, poly non-binary trans and disabled artist, writer, and a longtime activist. They are the co-founder of Trans Sisters Brothers Conference, which was the first conference for trans people. Ja has done individual and panel discussions on varying trans and gender topics throughout the years. They are the founder of Safe Haven, an internet safe space for trans men and non-binary individuals of color who have been or are still in abusive partnerships. And Yeshua is a founding member of a chapter of Onyx, a leather kink club for people of color. Let's hear the presentation from Mr. Yeshua A. Holiday.
Okay, y'all just want me to start, right? Okay, my name is Yeshua. My title is, I'm an ordained elder. Let's see, I have been probably on my spiritual journey since I was a child. I started having dreams and receiving messages and seeing spirits from the time I was probably like, that I can remember from the time I was like probably 5 years old. I'm 56 now. I have had a on and off again love-hate relationship with the Christian church. I've had my struggles probably most of my life. If my mother was still alive, she could probably tell you stories of different things I did as a child sitting in church when the preacher was preaching. And and I was raised Episcopalian, just, you know, to let everybody know. And I would be sitting in the pew with my mom, and the pastor would say something about Jesus, and I would jump up and be like, he's lying. And my mother would look at me and be like, sit down, child, what's wrong with you? But I've had experiences like that ever since I was a kid. I'm pretty good at telling when preachers are faking it, when people in church are faking it in general. And that's always been an issue with me, because I can walk into a church and tell you who the people are that are not being real. And so that's made it difficult for me to actually be in church and continue to be in church. Over the years, I've practiced and researched and explored various different religions and faith practices. I'm still very much a Jesus person. I'm just not a church person, or even, I don't even know if I would even always identify myself as a Christian. I have practiced, I practice Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism, which resonates with me in my spirit, because I'm very much a believer that God is within us, that, you know, it's not these other forces that make us make these decisions all the time. It's ourselves. Good and bad lives within us as human beings. And I believe that we are spiritual people having a human experience and not the other way around. So I practice Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism. I'm also trying to get my walk with African faith-based religions down, because it's something that keeps coming up in my spirit that I need to do. So it's just a matter of me as a trans person finding the right person who's willing to take me on this journey and do it correctly, because a lot of people, like with any other religion, they just want to get the money from you. So it's a matter of finding the right person that's willing to take that walk with me. And speaking of my transition, I just had my 21st birthday, transition-wise, back in April. So that has been a very long journey for me. I don't identify as a trans man any longer. I identify mostly as non-binary now. A realization that took me a very long time to come to. But with God's help, I've gotten there. To be able to be comfortable enough within myself to know that it's okay for me to look the way I look, to wear the clothes I wear, and still not necessarily fit completely in a male identity. So that's been this past few months, that has been very much of awareness that I've come to, and has made me more comfortable with me. I think what has also challenged my faith throughout the years is that, unbeknownst to myself, I was born with a genetic illness. And I didn't even find out about it until I got sick with another illness, which happened like, God, it's been 20 some years ago now. But the health challenges that I've had to deal with over the years have very much tested my faith. I've almost died 3 times. I have a lot of body issues now that have definitely put my faith to a test and made me question my walk and what I'm supposed to be doing and how I'm supposed to be doing it. Even though I'm still getting the same messages from a lot of people that my walk is much different from everybody else's, that I'm supposed to go to places that nobody else goes. But I'm like, okay, so I'm in a wheelchair now. How do I do that? How do I go to these clubs? How do I go to these back alleys that you still tell me that I'm supposed to go to and do the work and talk to our people? So I'm really working with that right now. And I think Dee, without her realizing it, popping up in my life again these last couple of months has made me have to look at that, because when I'm around her, I'm really in that spiritual place, you know. So I'm like, okay, the universe is trying to tell me something. She's up in my life again. Okay, what does this mean? What does this, what does this look like? You know, we're both getting older. We both have health challenges. We both have, all these different things, but something is still unfinished. Something still needs to be done. So I'm trying to wrap my head around what that looks like for me now. In the space that I'm in. But I want to get back out into Atlanta. I want to do stuff. I want to work with the people, just not necessarily in a building, in a church. I want to do the street work. You know, a lot of people don't know what my name means. Yeshua is Aramaic for Jesus. My Yoruba Orisha is Obatala, who is said to be where the idea of Jesus came from for people, for Christian, you know. Obatala is the son of Olodumare, which is the name of God in Yoruba tradition. And that is the Orisha that covers my head, is Obatala. So all these things put together over the years have pretty much, it's been an uncomfortable message for myself, but a message that I receive, that this is where my walk is. My walk is not inside the church. It's outside the church. It's helping the people in the streets. It's helping our community in the streets. And now that I have a better understanding of myself and where I'm going to be, and trying to get comfortable with my own illnesses, I believe I can help other people do the same. get comfortable with where they are and who they are in this community. Because we've become, over the years, this community has changed so much. We've become much more than we used to be. We're much more open than we used to be. There's so many different identities now within the trans community than there used to be. So these are things that people need help with, even within our own community. And I want to get back out there and do what it is that God still has for me to do. I'm not going to lie about it. I'm hesitant. You know, I have my doubts, you know, my insecurities. But I know I've learned a long time ago that I can't run away from God's call. So it's just a matter of me getting comfortable in it and getting back out there and doing what I need to do for myself and for the community. And I'm looking forward to it. You know, I'm actually looking forward to it. And that's why I told Dee Dee before that if there's anything that she needs me to help her with, please let me know. Because I know there's something. I know there's something. We just got to figure out what it is. But, yes. Anything else? I don't know.
Yes, that was Reverend Yeshua Holiday. Reverend, we want to say thank you so much to our society. Thank you for paving the pathway, making the pathway smoother for the next generation. And thank you for being who you are. We want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. So let's check in. We hope everyone is themselves. We hope you're learning something, you're being empowered, you're being inspired by our stories. And so for our last presentation is yours truly. So we're gonna switch up the pace a little bit. I'm gonna do mine live. Let me first see if I can share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Okay. How's that? Everybody, can you see that okay? Dee Dee, I see you're still on. Can you see the screen? Can you see what I'm sharing?
Yes, Miss Tracy, we can see it.
Perfect. Well, thank y'all so much for giving me this opportunity to tell my story of a born rebel who stepped out on faith. It's my love letter to my mother and my community. To me, as I've reflected back on my unordinary childhood growing up in South Carolina, I'm grateful for those many opportunities, and I'm also grateful for the opportunity to share an abbreviated version of my story with you all. So being raised Baptist created many challenges for my mother and I growing up, because she wanted to control who I was. She didn't want me to be who I was, and we were fighting for control, and we fought many battles about control. As a result, before my mother stopped worrying about what others were saying, and as she accepted me for my authentic self, I recall her forcing me to read these Bible verses, Leviticus condemning to hell, homosexuality, going to hell, and no matter how many times I was forced to read those verses, I always knew that those verses had nothing to do with who I am, because I never identified as such. I never identified as being gay or homosexual. I didn't understand, I didn't have the reference to being trans or gender nonconforming at that time. I knew that I wasn't gay or homosexual. So when I finally found a verse within the Bible that I truly identified with, it was St. Matthew, which states, "Not everyone can accept this word, but only those to whom it has been given. For there are eunuchs who were made eunuchs. For heaven's sake, there are eunuchs who've been made eunuchs by mankind. There are those who choose to be eunuchs, but for heaven's sake. The one who can accept this should accept it." Now, this is what I use as my sword and shield. And I wish at the time that I was aware of this verse. This is what I use when I step out into the world when someone tries to tell me, well, God says this and the Bible says that. I always say the Bible says many things. We just have to seek the truth and tell the truth about who we really are. Now, moving forward, my mother, I'm thankful for our relationship. I'm her daughter. Nobody better not say anything about it. If you have something to say about her cub, they better keep it to themselves, because my mother doesn't play when it comes to her kids. My foundation is my mother. She's my shiro. She's the person that that I've used as my role model. She always taught my brother and I to be leaders, not followers. And she's always been independent and hardworking, which is where I got my independence and hard work ethics from my mother there. So this is my foundation. This is where it all started for me. And I'm so thankful. Although we've had our challenges throughout the years, we're in a different place now, and there's no bond stronger. So with maturity and understanding, I understood that my mother was only, trying to, she was concerned about my safety and my well-being, because she knew how the world would treat her cub. She knew how the world would to treat someone that was gender non-conforming. So those were her fears at that time. And I also believe that I was a rebel at birth, because I was born during the height of the civil rights movement, 2 years before the '69 Stonewall riots. And I started rebelling at 7 years old when I ran away from home, because I wanted to be who I was and I wasn't listening to anyone else. And also remember when I was a teenager, I remember my aunt caught me kissing a boy under my grandmother's window, which is this window here. I'll never forget that day when she caught me kissing my first crush. So, and then when I turned 18 and in graduation, that presented for me an opportunity to live authentically. I had an opportunity to get a summer job on Myrtle Beach, which turned into 2 years. During that time, I transitioned on my job. I went for the interview one way, and then one weekend, one Friday after work, I decided to go to the mall and to buy an outfit to wear the offshore drilling company at the time on Myrtle Beach. So I went into the JCPenney's and I went straight to the women's department, and that was it. I was shopping at the women's department from then on. And during that time, I'd gotten a job with some friends, and they'd all got bored. They all started to miss home, get homesick, and so they returned home. I wasn't ready to return home yet, because I had gotten the taste of freedom. I've gotten the taste of being my own person, making my own rules. And I figured, well, I'm paying my own bills, so I can do whatever I wanted to do. So when I was in Job Corps, everyone was talking about GA and how so many opportunities were here in Georgia. So I decided, instead of going home after the 2 years I spent on the beach, I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Didn't know anyone here, didn't know what was going on. I always had faith. I said a prayer to God. God, this is where you want me to be. If it's not, then put it where you want me to be. And I know that you're here. You're going to guard, God, and protect me through whatever happens. So when I moved to Georgia in '88, it started off with the kindness of a stranger. When I got here on the Greyhound bus with my 7 bags, I asked the cab driver to take me to a safe place where I can stay, and because I was concerned about my safety, and so he took me to the safest place. And he later on offered, that day he gave me his card, and he offered to come back that weekend if I wanted to, so he can take me around town into Midtown, which is where I first went into Backstreet and I saw the amazing Tommy Ross on stage. I was so inspired and so enamored by her and by what she was doing. I said, well, if she can do it and she's so beautiful, I want to reach that level to start making my coins entertaining people on stage. So I started to do auditions and talent shows and the shows, local shows here in the clubs, and Marquette, Loretta's, wherever there was a show, Crazy Rays, Backstreet, Lipsticks. I was there, I was making my coins. And so I figured, well, once I get a job, I'll be okay. So that was my top priority. Got a job cashiering during the day, and I was moonlighting at work on the stage. And when I went to the Marquette one time, I met Tara Holiday, which is the person right here with her legs on the table there. And she and I, we've been friends, best friends for over 30 years, and we're friends to this day. And when I met Tara Holiday, we became roommates, and me and my dog Goldie and her, we were the threesome, and we did what we did to survive, and made it through each day at a time, and we had support from each other. And so during that time when I was in Atlanta, Georgia, I was in 2 relationships, and they were both domestic violence, intimate partner relationships with someone wanting to control me, tell me what to do. I moved out of my mama's house because I didn't want her telling me what to do. So I'm definitely not going to let someone else tell me what to do. And especially you're going to put your hands on me and give me swollen lips and black eyes, and then you're going to tell me you love me. That wasn't working. So I knew that I had to make some changes, and I knew that I definitely wasn't going to tolerate being in a domestic violence relationship. And so from the going back and forth, breaking up, getting back together, breaking up, getting back together, I knew that something tragic was going to happen. So I made a plan. I said, well, I needed to get as far away from this relationship as possible. And I decided that I needed to go as far away, either Paris, France, or California. So Los Angeles, California won out. The last time we broke up, I pretended that we were going to get back together. Up until the last minute, I made a plan, purchased a ticket, and I hit it. I headed to the City of Angels, Los Angeles in 1990. When I got to Los Angeles, I was living my best life. I knew that this was a better situation, and for as usual with some domestic violence relationships and some domestic violence survivors, we go back to the relationship. I'd gotten here, I'd gotten accomplished, I'd gotten settled, and I figured, well, we're in a different place, we're in a different time, different relationships, different peers, so maybe it will be different. So I made the mistake, called him, and he came, and everything was cool for a couple of weeks, and then he went back to his regular self. So then he tried to start controlling me and wouldn't let me go to work. So one night I was headed to work, we got into a big fight, he was choking me, he had me on the floor, and thankfully I was saved by my guardian angel, Alma. She rented my apartment, and she knew the situation that we were in domestic history. So she saw through the window blind. Thankfully, it was open enough so that she could see what was going on. And she called the police, and she saved my life, I believe. And after that situation, I said, well, I did. I tried. I made every effort to do what I could do. It was out of my control, so it was a matter of life or death for me at that moment. Because if I stayed in that situation, something bad was going to happen. So I had to give it up and turn it loose for good. That's what I did. And I decided that I did not want any more drama in my life. And I wanted to find out what was it about me that was attracting these types of domestic violence relationships, these abusive men who feel that they can control me. And when they can't with their mouth, they try to do it with their hands. So I sought counseling just to figure out what it was about me and change that. And in the middle of counseling, that started the process of changing the relationship between my mother and I, because my counselor suggested that I speak with her about some of the challenges that I felt when I was growing up with some of the abuse. And so I wrote her a letter, figured, well, he wanted me to talk to her. I said, no, I'm not going to talk to her on the phone. I feel safer writing the letter. So I went home, wrote out the letter, and before I hesitated, I took it to the post office, dropped it in the night box because I didn't want to lose my nerve and not send it. So I said a prayer to God. I said, God, it's out of my hand. If she responds, fine. If she doesn't, I'm still taking care of myself, and I'm still going to do me. So fortunately, she responded with a 5-page response, and that started the healing of our relationship. And in that process, I started working. When I first moved to Los Angeles, California, I said a prayer to God. God, take care of me. I know that you're going to put me in the places where I need to be, and you're going to protect me, God, and guard me. So when I got there, I got off the bus, Greyhound bus again, asked the car driver to take me to a safe place. He took me to a hotel, safe place downtown. He also told me, I asked him about some of the entertainment spots, and so he told me about Club 7969. So he told me how to get there, what buses to take. He gave me all the information so that following Tuesday, I got on the bus, went to the club, spoke to the manager, asked for an audition. I got an audition that Friday night, and that night I became one of the cast members of the Peanuts cast. And I started moonlighting because at that time, it was the kindness of another stranger on Hollywood Boulevard. I was walking from to Hollywood. I was shopping for some accessories and some costumes for a show that I had coming up. So I was waiting at the light to cross the street. This tall, handsome man stood beside me, and he finally said something to me, and it eventually ended up with him asking me to lunch. I said, well, who is he? What does he want? And then I said, well, the restaurant is right there. It's daytime. You know, I'm not in fear. So I agreed to have lunch with him. And so during that process, I was telling him about my life and that I was just moved here and trying to get settled. Without skipping a beat, he told me about his consulting company, Dolan Micro Consulting. His name was Jim Dolan. I will never forget him. He offered me a job on the spot. He told me that he needed a manager for his company. He didn't ask for an interview. He didn't ask for my resume. He didn't ask for any experience. He just offered me the job. So I accepted. And in that time, while we were still having lunch, he pulled out his checkbook and wrote a check in advance on my salary because I told him that I was staying with a friend and I was trying to save for my own apartment. So he wrote out an advance for my apartment. So I was able to get my apartment and get settled in my own place. And as time progressed, I was fortunate enough, I believe I was blessed enough to be featured as a backup singer and rehearsal stand-in for my icon and a living legend, Miss Dinah Ross. I was hand-selected by the video producers to do the stand-in rehearsals for her during the video shoot. So that was a blessing. And another blessing that I was able to receive was being a featured snowflake girl in the Jacksons, An American Dream. It was a mini-series, a VH1 mini-series that I got a really good part in that. And I'm thankful and I'm blessed to have been able to sustain myself and pay my own bills, you know, through working during the day and moonlighting at night on the stage. I'm so grateful for those opportunities. And in that process, I met the man of my dreams. I met someone, well, we actually met in '90 when I first moved to Los Angeles, when we were introduced by a mutual friend. I was at the tail end of a relationship. I wasn't thinking about no other relationships. I wasn't getting involved with no other men. I was done for that time. I needed to focus on me. So then 5 years later, we met again at the same venue, and we've been together ever since. And I let him know from the get-go, I'm not dealing with domestic violence. You put your hands on me, and I'm not dealing with financial insecurity. If we can't be secure in this relationship, then we can't make it. And I knew that it wasn't going to be a fairy tale. I insisted on him getting personal counseling for his childhood challenges and anger management challenges. And through hard work and commitment and a healthy dose of marriage counseling, we've been together for 25 years now. So I am thankful for being able, because I always dreamed about being with someone that would accept me 100%. So it's been 25 years now and we're still going strong. So I'm grateful for that. So as I was living my heterosexual life and then after moving back to the East Coast, I started to hear about the many challenges that most trans people were dealing with. You know, I didn't want nobody to know my business. I didn't care about what was going. I cared about it, although I didn't want to publicly state that I was trans. However, because I believe that all trans lives matter. The human dignity and equal rights of trans and gender nonconforming people are under threat due to the military ban, rescinding of medical protections, bathroom restriction bills, and discrimination in the workplace. Human and civil rights legislation is a vital component to trans people obtaining liberty and justice, and transgender and gender nonconforming and non-binary people face systemic and deeply rooted discrimination in seeking affordable housing and equality. And inequities at rates higher than other community members. Now, I couldn't just sit back and live my heterosexual life without getting involved, without doing something to make a difference. Because according to the Southern Poverty Law Center, in 2017, trans and gender, particularly trans women of color, were being murdered at a rate of almost 1 per week in the first 2 months. And it's devastating our community at the number of murders that are constantly happening within our community, and seemingly nothing is being done about it. So this is why I had to use my voice. This is why I've chosen to show up and participate for equity and equality. So because Black Lives Matter also, and because trans people were being denied entry into shelters, and Black women were trying to ban Black women, trans women from Midtown, and the number of trans murders. I just had to use my voice. I just had to show up and make sure that our needs are met and that we have a seat at the table, because I strongly believe that we also deserve human and civil rights protections as everyone else. So what happened was I figured, well, I needed to bring credibility to my work, so I established Juxtapose Center in 2007. And then from that, JCT is a anchoring organization for Trans Housing Atlanta program, which provides assistance to trans people who are in need for shelter. So we wanted to do something. We didn't want to just sit back on the sideline and complain. We wanted to make a difference. And I was fortunate enough in 2016 to be appointed by our former mayor, Kasim Reed, to the Atlanta Citizen Review Board. Although my appointment was a real challenge with phobias and all the other crazy stuff that was going on, I was later encouraged by leadership to seek leadership. And I'm currently serving my second 3-year term, and I was unanimously elected to serve as vice chair in 2020. I'm also the first recipient of the board members to receive the Ivory Lee Young Junior Leadership Award. I believe it's my responsibility to make the pathway smoother for the next person. I believe it's my responsibility to represent us well, because I don't want me to be the only person, the only trans person to represent the Citizen Review Board, the very important police oversight board that needs to, that's very necessary for our community. I don't want to be the only one. I want to make sure that when the next person comes, well, they say, well, this person was professional. This person did this. I want to make sure that there's room for the next person, which is why I believe that it's my responsibility to be professional and to represent us well. Another reason I feel like I'm an advocate is because I think it's very important for us to show up. In 2007, I lobbied the United States Congress for HIV/AIDS increased funding, and also ENDA, which was to serve as protection, workplace protections for trans and gender non-conforming people to not be discriminated in the workplace. In 2015, I briefed the Obama administration, White House, on employment inequities and how those inequities affect trans and gender non-conforming people of color. 2019, I joined Mayor Keisha's Lance Bottom TLGBTQI Advisory Council, and I'm currently serving my second term. And in 2020, Representative Cannon and the Georgia House of Representatives presented me with a resolution commending my work that I've done in the community. I never expected to be awarded for the work that I do, because it's something that I feel that I was innately born to do. So I'm greatly appreciative of the recognition and acknowledgement of my service to the community. I believe moving forward that it's important for us to tell our own stories. That's why I wrote my memoir, Transitions, Memoirs of a Transsexual Woman. And I believe that our stories have misconstrued and changed purposefully to not include our positive contributions to our community and to our society. So I think it's very important for us to also tell our own stories in our own words. And I think that we should be the captains of our own ship in destiny. And I wanted to complete a citizen police academy, citizen police academy. So I was happy and to be able to accomplish that. It gave me insight on the many challenges and the unique rewards of community policing. Because I needed to have some knowledge of what I'm talking about if I'm representing us on the Citizen Review Board. So all of this would not be possible without my North Star. I come back to my North Star because I'm thankful that she did not kick me out of our family home when I was growing up, because I was a hot mess. I thought I was grown in my teens. I thought I knew everything. And I gave my mama HELL, honey. We had our challenge, and I'm thankful that she stuck through. She stuck with me. She prayed for me. She instilled in me values that I will always have within me, and I will take with me throughout my life. And I'm thankful that my mother is here to witness my evolution now. I'm thankful that she's still here. She's in a sound mind. She can see the changes that I've made because Lord knows I sent her through it. So with that being said, we have some time for some questions. I think there may be some questions in the chat box, if I'm not mistaken. Miles, are you still there?
Yes, I am not seeing questions in the chat box, but for everybody who's watching here, please feel free to drop those in the chat, and then we can engage with those.
Is Yeshua and Didi still there?
Yes, I'm still here.
Didi, did you have anything that you want to add?
No, I was just still just drinking in all of the stories, just seeing them all at one time. It just feels so powerful.
Yes, absolutely. Yes. And I do believe that our visibility saved lives, and human rights are trans rights and trans rights are human rights. So we must stand up, and we must continue to make sure that our voices are heard and our faces are being seen, because that's the only way that policy is going to be made, and policies will be changed to assist us with advancing forward.
Yes. So, Ms. Tracy, this is Miles again, and we
Yes.
do have a few questions now here in the chat. The first one here is, what advice would you give to your teenage self looking back?
What advice will I give to my teenage self? That's a great question. The advice is that be patient. Everything is going to be okay. Because I had to work on my patience because I wanted stuff right then and there. So I think I've done a pretty good job of being patient. So I would tell my younger self to be patient and just take it one day at a time, one step at a time. Yes.
The next question here is, what kind of guidance or advice would you offer to young trans people, gender nonconforming people, non-binary people right now? You know, in 2020, what are some insights you'd like to share with the youth?
Yes. Don't be afraid to use your voice. Don't be afraid to speak up and speak out. You know, don't ever let anyone tell you you're in the wrong place or you need to be at the back of the line or there's no place for you. Always show up for yourselves, because if you don't show up for yourselves, then no one else will. And also, as importantly, I think it's very important that we watch our peers, because growing up, you know, you can get a peer that may put you in the wrong direction. It just takes one wrong step and it will ruin your life. So be careful and be cautious and be discerning about your peer groups, because what you do as a youth, what you do as a teenager will follow you throughout your life. So you want to be conscious of what you're doing. Thankfully, we didn't have the social media, the Facebook, and all this other stuff that kids have today. So I think we were blessed to grow up in that age, because we didn't have to worry about those those challenges that social media presents to kids and teenagers now. So just be careful of your and show up for yourself.
Yeah. The next question here is, as there has become more information about different identities, and there's been new ideas introduced about gender, has that information shifted the way that you interact with thinking about gender and gender identity? Has it changed your understanding of yourself at all? Or are there other ways that your understanding of yourself has changed over time?
I'm learning a lot from the new generation, the new terminology, some of the things that I've never heard before. So I'm saying, keep it coming, honey. Do you, and identify as you want to identify. Don't let anyone else pressure you into doing something that makes them comfortable, first of all. What was it? Can you repeat that question one more time?
If any of the new terminology has changed how you think about yourself, or just how you think about gender in general?
Well, I wouldn't say it changed how I think about myself. However, I have an understanding of gender and how other people choose to identify and how they choose to express. So in that way, yes, I've changed. And my thing is, do you? You know, don't let anyone tell you who you are. You know who you are. So stand strong. But as far as my gender, myself, I'm not sure if there's anything that I would say has changed. So I'm just inspired by the new generation, the new terminology, the new presentation. So it's all amazing to me.
I love that. We have another question, and this one is from a parent who recently had a teenager who came out to them and shared that they are trans MTF. And they are wondering if you have any advice for parents with teens who are sharing more about themselves with them. They're looking maybe for some ways to communicate and to connect in a meaningful and loving way.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. I say, for any parent that is interested in supporting their child, bravo to you. We need more of you, definitely. I would say also listen to your child. Your child will tell you exactly where they are. Support your child, because we may not understand. Just be a safe place for your child. And whatever you do, don't ever kick your child out of their home. I don't know where I would have been or what kind of situation I would have been in if my mother had kicked me out of our home. So always. I'm sorry. It's important to love your child regardless. Regardless of what other people says, what society says. Because if you can't love your child, then who do you expect to love them? So my hat goes off to the parents that love their children. So thank you.
Yeah.
I hope I was able to answer that question. Okay. Yeah. Always support your child. Listen to your child. Be there. Have your child's back. Don't let people say things about your child. because they say things under their breath, they say things jokingly, but they're directing it to you. Call them out. Don't let them do it. So, and let your child know that you have their back. So whenever they go out into the world, then they know they have a safe place. So yes.
In support of Tracy and her sharing an emotional time, it hits a note, I think, with a lot of people, being that if you're not loved at home, determines what roads you will travel. And having that support while you're trying to figure out who you are and what you are and why you are, you need to have a stable place to stay where you're being loved. And thank you, Tracy, for sharing such a tender moment in all our lives, you know, and how our lives might have been different if we had had that support.
Yes.
Thank you.
Very eloquently said.
The last question is one of my favorite to ask pioneers and leaders in any movement, and that is, what is one thing right now that is giving you hope, Tracy?
I am hopeful. I always have hope, and I always have faith. I have hope in our people. I have hope in our choices. I hope that we will have a new administration before too long. And I hope that this COVID virus thing will end soon, and so we can move on with our lives to a better future to us. And I'm hopeful that the next administration will be bold enough to say transgender, trans people, gender non-conforming, non-binary people, and that will do what the previous administration, the Obama administration, did, was include us to make sure that we are protected also. So I have hope, you know, and for the fact that people are still out protesting, that people are showing up, people are voting, people are standing in these long lines to vote, that gives me hope. So.
Well, do you have any other last insights to share, or any remarks? Because otherwise, I think you have earned a break to step away.
Yes, I just want to saying, always remember human rights are trans rights are human rights, and Black trans lives matter also. And I want to say thank you all so much for your attention, and I'm sure the other presenters are grateful that you all are here anywhere else. So we want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank y'all so much, Miles, for everything that y'all are doing. So thank you. And Dee Dee, yes.
All right. Well, thank you all for being here. Thank you so much, Ms. Tracy, and thank you, Ms. Dee Dee. We are going to close out this session, but as a reminder, our workshops are beginning at 1 p.m. So take a look at that list. If for some reason you're having trouble finding the links to access any of those workshop links, please send us an email at info@beyondpinkblueconference.org. You can also send us a message or post on Facebook if you're having any trouble accessing those links. But 1 p.m. Eastern is when our workshops will begin. Thanks.
Matt.